This project is a collaboration between the University of Hartford, the Harriet Beecher Stowe Center, the girls from Educational Main Street, and the women from the Hartford community. We came up with this idea because we wanted to spark interest in the younger generations today to get more socially active in their communities.
We feel as the generation of today isn't as socially and politically active as in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. I feel like those generations, we heard a lot about people going out into the community and standing up for what they believe in and making a betterment in their society. Whereas now it's more of like the generation today isn't really going out and doing things to better their society. They kind of just accept what society has given them.
From the time Harriet Beecher Stowe was a very young girl, she was raised to believe that she had a responsibility to really try to make the world a better place. She was taught to believe that each of us has the power to do that. So when she was about 21, she moved with her family to Ohio, and while she was living there, she saw for the first time the abomination, as she described it, of slavery.
My name is Harriet Beecher Stowe, but my friends and family call me Hattie. And my mother is author Harriet Beecher Stowe. You'll probably remember her for writing Uncle Tom's Cabin.
So she decided to write Uncle Tom's Cabin, which really humanized slavery. It put a face on it. It drew attention to the issue of families torn apart, mothers separated from their children, and changed public sentiment, and is credited with actually sparking the Civil War. I think that Harriet Beecher Stowe is an inspiration to people today because she really serves as a great example of how one person can make a difference. I think that each of us can look at her and be inspired to take action and to not say, well, what can I do? I'm just one person, because she shows by her actions that you can make a difference.
What she managed to do as a woman in the 19th century when people couldn't vote and when the country was even more classified than it is now, she worked to right a wrong. She was one person who made a difference. She picked up her pen and she changed the world. And Uncle Tom's Cabin became internationally famous, and so did she, and she just was a little minister's daughter. So I thought that that was an example for all of us.
Our mission at the Harriet Beecher Stowe Center is to use Stowe's life and work and her commitment to social justice to really inspire other people to affect change in their world. And I think our project can really do that by showing the young girls that one person can make a difference, and having them then connect with other women who have done just that. And so it's not just Harriet Beecher Stowe was a very famous woman who did it, but everyday people like me and you can make that change too.
Stowe's an example of one person making a difference, and that's a story that connects with anybody. So she was a wife, mother of 7. She had all the struggles that women have. She didn't have enough money. She had to make her way in the world, and she still took the time to, one, she figured out how to earn a living with her writing, and 2, she picked up her pen and used her pen to change the world and to right a wrong. And I think that is an example for all of us, especially for your generation.
We wanted to inspire the younger generations of today to get involved in their community. We wanted to spark interest in community activism by showing examples of women who live right here in their backyards.
I grew up in the community of Hartford professionally because I came here to become a lawyer, and I was a prosecuting attorney for 12 years. And I did that because it seemed at that time that people thought that black people were only the perpetuators of crime and not the victims of crime. And I knew, living in the community, that black people were most often the victim of a crime. I mean, people didn't go outside of the neighborhood most of the time to commit a crime, and I felt that that was a side of the story that wasn't being heard.
The academy was unbelievable. It was a really tough experience. I had to overcome the opposition of the men that were there because they felt as though it was we were invading their space. It had been completely dominated by males up until that point, and they didn't make it very easy for the females in my class.
The defining moment happened at a day that I'd been shopping all day in Roanoke, North Carolina, Roanoke Rapids with my dad. And I was sitting in the back seat directly behind him, and he drove up to this window. It's like a movie theater type box where you just pull the box off and you order something. And we were sitting there for a long time, at least it was a long time for a hungry kid. And finally, we didn't move, and a young white man, about 17 at the time, came out and said, "Get out of here, nigger. We don't serve niggers here." In a country that I knew by the time I was 12 and in the 7th grade promised that everybody had equal rights and there would be equal justice and everybody would be treated equally. And when I saw that the country was not living up to that promise, I decided then and there at 12 in the backseat of that car when I saw my father's head lowered, that I would do something to bring his dignity back, and I would do it by working within the system. And so I knew that I would have to work hard, and I wasn't going to have immediate gratification, but someday I would do something to make sure that the country respected people like my father who were hardworking, law-abiding citizens.
After 5.5 years of being a police officer, I decided that I wasn't able to move within the department the way I wanted to and work with children. And so I resigned, and I wanted to go back to school and get a degree, but things just didn't happen that way. So for a few years I went into the private sector. The transition was really difficult, where I thought it would be easy. I thought that because I had all that training and all that worldly experience of being in the community and being a really outgoing person and having this wonderful accomplishment, that I would be able to transition, and it wasn't like that at all.
I knew that everybody was doing something to create a better country and make the world a better world. And I'd watch on TV and I'd see the young people in the South, and I'd see them very young children putting their lives on the line and facing dogs and doing everything else they could without fighting back, but just to make a difference. And I felt that that was part of my mission. And so in my junior year, I just showed up at the all-white high school. I didn't tell anybody I was coming. I just showed up to go to school. And nobody said anything to me. Nobody said anything negative. They just totally ignored me. So, I had to work a little bit at a time. And as I progressed, I'd see, yeah, maybe it's law school, and then I can get to law school. And then after I got to law school and I became a prosecutor, and I was on the right side of the law. And then I thought, well, maybe being a judge isn't really out of my reach, and people encouraged me to do that. And eventually, I was appointed in 1991 by Governor Lowell Weicker as the first African-American female judge in the state of Connecticut. And on that day, my father's head was held quite high, and I felt that justice was done, and I was very proud that I was able to make that accomplishment.
I went into outreach. One of the programs that I developed for kids that had sickle cell disease, they did a summer program that was called Fun on the Farm with me. I specialized their summer activities around their illness. Basically what I did was I had to buy special saddle pads because children with sickle cell disease extreme a lot of physical body pain. But they're kids like anybody else, and so I customized the program, and then when I was closing it down, their director offered me a job as an outreach coordinator, as a spokesperson for that organization, for the kids. And now I do crisis intervention for InfoLine. It's funded in part by the state and United Ways around the state of Connecticut, and some private, I believe some private funding is involved as well. So I do crisis intervention. And I'm also a certified advocate, mental health advocate for kids through the Connecticut Bar Association. So I'm able to take all those skills and use them daily in my present position.
Well, I always liked boxing because as a little child, I would watch my grandfather sit and watch boxing matches. And then when I became a state's attorney, I had the good fortune of working with marshals who were all mostly professional boxers, like Willie Pep. In fact, I have a book about him right there. And they would always take me to boxing matches, and so I really got to learn the boxing game. And eventually, it occurred to me that I would like to become a boxing judge. And especially when I found out that there were no women boxing judges, it was a challenge. And I said, you know, I had to break this barrier down. Sure enough, I got elected to the Boxing Hall of Fame Board of Directors, and so now I'm on that. And that's pretty exciting because we get to meet a lot of professional boxers, and we travel all over the state to all the boxing matches. And I thought that was something that needed to be done because all of the color was inside the ring, and I thought there should be some decision making too from people of color.
But the sky is the limit.
Yeah.
You know, but having a degree now puts me in a whole different place from, you know, working in a position where you have the equivalent, because if you want to move on, unless you have that piece of paper, you can't move on, and that's what I want kids to know too. So I'd like to see myself as a role model for kids, that it's never too late, because you don't go right after high school or a few years after, that it's never too late to reach your dreams and goals.
Every generation has a problem that they have to solve for their generation, and I don't think kids now grow up as quickly as I had to grow up because I faced my problems so early on, as young as 12 years old. And it's fortunate that kids get to, you know, have sort of an extended youth and experiment with more things because there's so many choices and so many things that you could do. But I would think that everybody needs to feel something in their soul, some injustice, something that they feel they need to make right. One person really can make a difference, and I don't count making a difference in numbers. It can be one person at a time, and that's what's so good about this job, being a judge. I feel that I can make a difference, even if it's one person at a time, and that's how you start a revolution.
The girls were great. They were so enthusiastic, and they were really sweet. They came to our school, and that was really neat because they got to see what it's like in college life.
We went to Fox Middle School. We taught them interviewing skills. We educated them a little bit about the 1950s, 60s, and 70s and what happened at that time and how people were socially active at that time and the history of it and how there was discrimination and segregation and how there was people, you know, getting arrested for, you know, standing up for what they believe in, and how there are certain historical figures in society that made a huge difference.
You know, it was a very good experience, I feel, for the girls, and it also got them warmed up to the camera, so when they came to the Stowe House to do our event with the women, they were more comfortable asking the women questions.
What was your inspiration to get involved in all of these activities at Hartford?
My inspiration, frankly, was my 5 children. With 5 children, I wanted them to have the best life I could possibly give them, my husband and I. And I wanted them to grow up and be well-rounded individuals. So that meant if they were going to be well-rounded, I had to do some things to help make that happen. One of the things I did and felt was important was to be involved with my children's school. I would go to all of the PTO or PTA sessions with the teachers to talk about the child and the child's progress, that kind of thing. I belong to the PTA, and of course that group meets, I think, once a month or once a week, whatever it was then. And I think it's important for parents to be involved with that, because you see, then the administrators, the principals, the teachers all know that you, as a parent, have an interest in your child. And believe it or not, they welcome that. They will work with you. They will work with your child. If the teacher is having a problem with your child in her classroom, then the teacher feels comfortable calling you as the parent. And then as the parent, you're supposed to correct the child. And I did that. And I wanted to do that because I knew that if the child didn't behave in the classroom, the child wasn't going to learn anything. And it could be disruptive to the point that the other kids wouldn't learn. I wasn't about to have that. And it worked. It worked. All 5 of my children graduated from high school. Most of them graduated from college, okay? And it proved my theory that the parent and the school have to work together for the good of the child. And I hope that's happening now in the city of Hartford.
What is one of the achievements that you made in your life?
I would say the accomplishment was to be able to work with students and to help them to reach their potential. I think that's really the important thing that I would always treasure. But after student teaching, I said, no, I think I want to work with little children. And, you know, you think sometimes, this is a long time ago, that it's just a matter of applying at your Board of Education. And I did. And they said, oh, we don't have anything for you. So I was a test case for what is now Human Rights and Opportunities. And my first teaching position was in Groton, Connecticut. And after they observed my teaching, then I was hired in Hartford. But that's the way things were at that time.
When working as a child, you did something to stand up for your rights, making a lifelong impact, which has been documented in the library.
I was in my junior year at Weaver High School. I was in my history class,